right, welcome to Computational Combat. I'm Dylan Grayson. This week, the brains of the operation, Johnny Kaufman, is not with us, but don't worry. He sent me the secret files, and I have them stored on a laptop, and I've printed them out, and I've emailed them to somebody, but they got stolen, and I don't have the file. No, I have the files. They're here.
Tucker? Is that you?
I cut that. Is that too political? I don't know. Regardless, joined as always by the next man Scott Coker wants to face Michael Venom Page. It's time for Potter.
No, Dylan, okay. That would have been your best one, but I can't make 170. The only thing.
Hey, I try. But
How long have you been
regardless,
sitting on that one? That was good.
honestly came up with it 10 minutes ago. Anyway, so Johnny is not here on the podcast, got a very busy week going on. Obviously the last few weeks it's been super busy. We haven't been able to get together, but it is a pay-per-view week. We didn't want to miss it, so I told Johnny send over that data, and I've got it. I've tried my best not to look at it so it doesn't sway the way I'm predicting things, but it's there, and we are just about ready to go. So big pay-per-view this week, again in a full arena, this time in Texas. I have no idea if the arena is going to have a masking rule or not, but
yeah, no idea.
We're getting better. I mean, it's still too early, but it is 1 month better than last time, and it will continue to be so. UFC 262 headlined by Oliveira versus Chandler for the vacant lightweight title. This was supposed to be co-mained by Diaz versus Edwards in a 5-round co-main event. That got pushed back. So now it'll be a 5-round feature fight, which will be interesting to see. And we have a pretty good main event in its, or co-main event rather, in its place. But we start, as always, from the early prelims with...
I really wish that Dariush versus Ferguson was 5 rounds, though.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've said it before, but I'm very much of the opinion that any fight involving top 5 fighters has to be a 5-round fight. God, that would be so good.
I think that Diaz versus Edwards will push us in that direction, or at least co-mains get that.
I hope so. I really hope so.
But regardless, we start off not at the top of the card, rather at the bottom. Christos Giagos versus Sean Soriano. So, I mean, not a bad fight for like the curtain jerker to open the show, but it's kind of tough to form opinions on this one. Giagos is 3-2 in his second run with the UFC. His only losses are to Charles Oliveira, so that's aged quite well, and Jacare close. Soriano, on the other hand, is on a 3-fight win streak, but it's in CES, which is a regional promotion up by me in New England, and then UAE Warriors, which they did looking for a fight out there when they went to Fight Island. They're good regionals, but I don't think that he's faced good enough competition to actually have me have any faith in him there. Connor, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Noah Lahat is a legit person to have fought and a legit person to have beaten. But I mean, Giagos, right?
Giagos.
Yeah. With his losses only being close and Oliveira in the UFC at least, I don't know, that's better competition, and not to say that he can win because he's lost to good people, because that would be stupid. But if that's the level of competition that he's losing to, then I don't think that's the level of competition that Sean Soriano is at.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same page as I said, and no pick from the algorithm because we have a debut. So on to the next one, and similar here, we've got about between Kevin Aguilar and Tucker Lutz. So this fight is taking place at featherweight. So Aguilar's on a 3-fight skid, and he's against 2-time Contender Series winner Tucker Lutz. Lutz is 10-1, and his only loss was his first professional bout. So he's on a 10-fight streak. He doesn't have the experience of anyone that Aguilar has beaten, but at a certain point, you've got 3 losses in a row. That pressure is starting to mount, and a 4th loss could be, the end of your UFC career. You have to wonder if that gets in Aguilar's head. And even if it's against a higher level of competition, a 4-fight skid versus a 10-fight win streak, I'm going to lean towards Lutz.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. We got to watch Aguilar live versus Barzola, right? Enrique Barzola.
Yeah, that was like his second to last win or his last win.
That was his last win in
Been a
2019.
while. Hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. Lutz obviously has not beaten anybody who is too significant. But just I mean, even based on their statistics, Aguilar eats a lot more punches. He lands a lot less of them, and he gets taken down a lot more often by a guy who's going to be shooting for takedowns reasonably consistently. He has a takedown average of 2 per 15 minutes. Like, that's not the highest in the UFC, but like, that's pretty significant when, according to UFC stats, you have a 25% takedown defense. So, yeah, I'm also going to take Lutz.
All right, so we move on to the next one. And this fight is not good. Uh, Gina Mazany versus Priscilla Cachoeira. So this bout is taking place at women's flyweight. These I always have to like take a step back and remind myself that I am a complete bitch who would never fight in a cage. But given that we are talking about fighters in the UFC and comparing them on the level of other fighters in the UFC, these two suck. I think Mazany sucks less. I'm going to go with Mazany. Both of them could beat me up, and I would never doubt that for a second. But we're talking about professional athletes here.
Yeah, you pretty much stole the words out of my mouth. Neither of them are particularly great fighters. But Priscilla Cachoeira is probably one of the worst fighters the UFC's ever signed. Um, I don't know. I'll be weird. Maybe I'll take Cachoeira in this one. Nah, I'm just kidding. I'll take Mazany.
Yeah, and you know who else hates this fight? The algorithm, because the algorithm could have thrown for this. There are two fighters with existing UFC careers to steal data from, and there is no call on the data that Johnny sent me. So this is where it would be nice to have him on the show with us, because I'm not sure if it just didn't see value or what was going on here, but there is no throw on this one. I promise there are real bets. They are coming, but not for this fight. Moving on to the next one. Hey, were we just talking about sucking? Because it's Jordan Wright versus Jamie Pickett. So this, I believe, is a middleweight bout. And so let me just talk about Pickett first, that we don't get too depressing for too long here. But Jamie Pickett really has only lost, at least recently, when he's gotten to the level of the Contender Series or in his one UFC fight. Normally, if he were going up against, I don't know, like anyone else, I might be concerned about that. But Jordan Wright has the most padded record I have ever seen, because he showed up at the UFC at 11-0 with one no contest. That no contest loss was him getting knocked out in under a minute on the Contender Series, but then the other guy popped for weed. Then, if you look back at his record, when he was 4-0, he fought a guy who was 0-10. And then I believe when he was 5-0, he fought a guy who was 0-21. Maybe I have that flipped or something, but I know that he fought an 0-10 fighter and an 0-21 fighter. And if you are a promoter who is booking somebody that is 4 or 5-0 against somebody with that many losses and no wins, you probably deserve to have your license taken, because that sounds like it's dangerous, unless, of course, that guy is a can who gets paid to flop. So whatever. Finally, Jordan Wright actually gets the call for the UFC, and Joaquin Buckley punches his head into the third or fourth row. Not that there were fans there. Jordan Wright has the best record for the worst fighter I've ever seen in the UFC. And based on that alone, I'm taking Jamie Pickett. I would take like
true. At one point, CM Punk was undefeated.
Shit posts aside, right? Obviously, you bring in a celebrity and he's there to be a celebrity, and they never did it again, thank God. But he shows up at 0-0. I know, he's undefeated, but like, this guy has an 11-1 record, and he's terrible. Once again, as a professional athlete, I'm sure he could kick my ass, no problem. But yeah, I'm taking Pickett.
I don't know. You have less losses than that 0-21 dude. What are you doing about that? I pretty much feel the same. I mean, Jamie Pickett's not the most impressive fighter. Like, his Tafon and Chukwi.
Hmm.
Nchukwu's loss last weekend is not the most inspiring thing for a guy who's also lost a decision to him. But at the same time, you can't get away with just not having like a win over Ike Villanueva is fine. That's an okay win, but like other than that, his record is pretty empty. So yeah, I'll also take Wright. Although I'm sorry, I'll also take Pickett. Although I'm not particularly interested in that fight whatsoever.
Well, the good news is the algorithm thinks we're both stupid. It has Jordan Wright as the predicted winner, 59% odds. And then for the bet, it has you placing 0.69% of your betting fund if you have a ongoing betting fund. And then if you're throwing everything on one night, 11.36% of that bet on the night on Jordan Wright. So the algorithm disagrees with us. I don't see it, but we've been shut up by the algorithm many times before.
Yeah, I mean it's the type of thing that like it's not the most surprising results in the world. Like this is both middleweight and not particularly high level MMA. Like shit can happen, sure.
Yeah,
But it's just that Jordan Wright hasn't proven that that shit can happen.
fair enough. And we move on to women's flyweight, the first ranked bout of the night. We've got Andrea KGB Lee at number 11 versus the number 12th ranked fighter, Antonina Shevchenko. Um, so Andrea Lee dumped her abusive neo-Nazi ex-husband, and now I hope she dumps her losing streak because I don't know. There's something. I don't want to say that she's like a particularly exciting fighter, but I do enjoy watching her fight, and I feel like
I
against
wonder why.
Shevchenko. Give me a second here. If we're going to talk about that, we're talking about the wrong Shevchenko sister. But if if you're looking at Antonina Shevchenko versus Andrea Lee, I feel like Lee is going to be much more powerful in the cage. I've briefly lost Connor, and I'm not sure if it's on my end. Can you hear me?
No, I'm here.
Okay, you froze for a moment. But regardless, I feel like Lee is going to have a distinct power advantage, and I'm not sure that that will be enough, but I'm leaning in that direction because both of these girls have losses to people in the division that are at a similar skill level. So I think this is actually a great matchup if you're the UFC's matchmaker. I feel like they're on a good, even playing field.
Yeah, I another fight where you and I agree. I mean, Shevchenko is the bigger person. She's got an extra 2 inches. Actually, she has shorter reach, but she's the larger of the two fighters. But I think the big thing that makes the difference here is that Andrea Lee's clinch game, it's not great, but it's probably one of the better aspects of her game. And Shevchenko, the older Shevchenko, seems to kind of struggle a little bit when she can't really get things going in the clinch. Yeah, Andrea Lee has lost her last three, but like Joanne Calderwood's probably going to get the next title shot, so whatever. Both of them have lost to Roxanne Modafferi, so whatever. And the Lauren Murphy fight, at least from MMA decisions, was a complete and total robbery. I didn't watch that fight, or at least I don't remember having seen that fight. Um, but against similar levels of competition, they've performed similarly. I'm going to take the person who I trust more to excel at the area that they're good at, being the clinch. So KGB Lee for me.
Fair enough. And along with us, we do have the algorithm who has, or who it has, Andrea Lee is a 67% favorite. And along with that, you are going to throw 1.39% of your betting fund on Andrea Lee. So that is a big bet. If you're talking about just one night, you're throwing 22.73% of that one night throw on Andrea Lee. And that is tied for the largest bet of the night. So there you go. It agrees with us, which is nice to see. And then moving on, I have no idea what to really think about this one. Featherweight bout between Lando Vannata and
Oh,
Mike
wait.
Grundy. So Lando Vannata had a lot of hype after his fight with Tony Ferguson, where he stepped in on late notice, and holy shit, he was supposed to be some can stepping in on late notice, and he did kind of well. And then he knocked out John McDessie with a spinning back kick, and nothing has ever been right for him since. I feel like this is going to be a good fight, but Grundy seems like a decent prospect to me. His only loss recently was to Movsar Evloev, which isn't particularly bad in any way. My heart says Groovy Lando, but my brain says Mike Grundy.
Yeah, I'm very okay. Wait, so first off, this is a featherweight fight, not a lightweight fight.
I had it written down as a featherweight fight. I could be off there.
Um, Tapology has it as 145 too. I didn't realize that Lando was dropping down at all.
I think
Um,
his last one might have been a featherweight as well. I'm
his
not sure.
last one was a loss to Bobby Green, dude.
Oh no,
His
this is a
entire
featherweight.
UFC
Yeah.
career has been 155.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, with that being said, I mean, I'm very biased for Lando. I really like him. I still remember getting hype as shit at what was that, UFC 206 when he landed that wheel kick on McDessie. Uh, I very rarely, if ever, rooted against him. I mean, yes, Mike Grundy is the up and comer, and Lando's kind of it feels weird to call him a UFC veteran given his career, but like he's technically the UFC veteran at this point. But and like I don't trust his cardio and I don't trust his chin, um, or his defense rather, not his chin. His chin's fine. He's tough as shit. But at the same time, we've seen him against a better level of competition. And even though he's lost, he's at the very least been somewhat competitive in a lot of those fights. So everything in my brain is telling me to pick Mike Grundy, but I'm gonna pick with my heart and go for Groovy Lando to get one more in.
I have a very specific memory of that McJesse fight because we were both headed to a formal, right? And you were watching in the common room of our suite sophomore year. And I had just finished putting on my suit and tying my tie, and I stepped out. I was like, "Oh, how's it going?" Spinning wheel kick knockout.
Are you sure? I thought we watched 206 in the great room of Brooks.
No, I am fairly certain.
Oh no, you know what? You're right. I was thinking of UFC 208.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
ain't that a
Oh,
memory? A little throwback.
I'm
Um,
so happy.
so the algorithm is on our side, at least for the model. Lando Vannata has a 52.46% chance of winning, which is pretty tight margins. And along with those tight margins, a small bet, 0.14% of a betting fund if you have one. And if you were going to throw everything in one night, just 2.27% of that night's throw. This is tied for the smallest bet of the night. And based on the margin that it has here, I'm not particularly surprised.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't surprise me, right? Like Lando is the exact opposite of a consistent fighter. Like his his career is all over the place. Sometimes he shows up and looks great. Most of the time he shows up and looks whatever. I personally would not place a bet on this, but I don't bet, so it doesn't matter.
Fair enough. This reading about this fight just made me sad on multiple levels. At middleweight, Jacare Souza versus Andre Muniz. I guess that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
There were a few things that I noticed. One, and I'm not surprised that he's getting it, but a big step down for Jacare. Number two, Jacare does not have a number next to his name, right? Like he is no longer ranked. That's brutal. And then I was like, I know he just lost to Kevin Holland, but like unranked, that's harsh. And then you go back on Tapology, his last win in 2018 over Chris Weidman. So just big sad all the way around. Jacare has certainly fallen off, but the question is, has he fallen off enough to lose to Muniz? Uh, Andre Muniz's wins tend to be by submission, and he's not going to do that against Jacare. Like, please don't let him do that against Jacare. He's not going to do that against Jacare. So maybe it's my heart, but I just don't see Jacare losing this one. I think this is big enough of a step down. Honestly, I think it's too big of a step down for Jacare, and I feel like Jacare gets his hand raised here.
Yeah, so I want to point out that according to Tapology, Andre Muniz has a fucking reach of 78 inches despite being 6'1", which is insane to think about. Because I'm 6'1" and I have a 74-inch reach. And already that's pretty long. But this dude is my height and has a 78-inch reach. Holy shit. Um, yeah, that being said, you and I are very much in agreement on this fight. Jacare's lost his last three. He hasn't looked great in most of them. I mean, he got dominated in the Hermanson fight. That Blachowicz fight was no one fucking watched that fight. That was bad. That was boring. That was 5 rounds, right? Yep, that
I
was a
think
5 round fight. God, wow. And then the Holland fight, I guess he looked neutral to okay before getting meme KO'd by fucking Kevin Holland. Um, how far does this is going to be a theme later on in the night as well, for the co-main event, but like how far does Jacare have to fall before I would feel comfortable picking Muniz against him? And the answer is pretty goddamn far. And like, yes, he's had some embarrassing knockouts recently and some embarrassing losses, but I would have to see him lose this fight before I would go, yeah, that's a fight that I would pick against him in. Jacare is still my alligator, you know? I'm gonna take him.
that's a lovely.
What does it mean crocodile, actually?
I think it means alligator, but I can't swear to it. Regardless, the algorithm is in agreement with us here. Jacare is a 65.42% favorite.
Yeah, it's alligator.
Right. So along with that, if you notice, similar split to a previous fight that had a very big bet, the same bet here, 1.39% of your fund. That is a big bet. If you're betting everything in one night, you're betting 22.73% of that night's bet. So that is a lot of money, or at least proportionally a lot of money. Please bet responsibly. But a good chunk of the money that you are willing to throw is going to go on Jacare here. And I feel like it's reasonable too. And I feel like the betting lines might be swayed a little bit by recency bias. People just saw him get knocked out, especially to get knocked out in such a weird way by Kevin Holland. People might be losing faith a little bit. Um, I like this bet. I would put big money on Jacare here.
I wouldn't. I Again, I would need to see. I need to know. I need to watch him fight and be like, yeah, Jacare still kind of has it, in order to feel comfortable. Because like his last performances, I don't feel have even been particularly indicative of how he's actually going to perform here. I would not. Maybe if this fight is reasonably contested, like then his next fight I would consider betting, but like not without seeing how he's doing actually.
Fair enough. I understand that. Moving on, we are now on the main card here for a flyweight bout between the number 8th ranked fighter, Matt Schnell, versus the number 9, Rogerio Bontorin. And before I make any picks, my prediction is this fight's going to be a fucking banger.
It is a flyweight fight.
Yeah. First of all, just the general flyweights are great. And, it's interesting seeing some people who are, I guess, more casual fans, like my father. He's like, oh, the heavyweights. I love the heavyweights. Oh, I'm not so interested in the flyweights. And I can't imagine being that wrong so aggressively because the flyweights are amazing. They are so fast. And if you're the type of guy who watches MMA only because you want face punching and like you don't care about any grappling or whatever, maybe you'd want heavyweights over the flyweights. But like everything is so exciting with the flyweights. The grappling exchanges are so fast, the hands are so fast, and sure, you can say, oh, there's not all that many knockouts, but like if you actually look at the data, there's not that many fewer than other divisions. So that being said, I actually do have a knockout predicted here. So Schnell's last fight was a split decision win over Tyson Nam. That doesn't impress me all that much. He's got pretty good grappling, but so if you remember the last fight, Bontorin versus Kaikara France, Bontorin almost had the fight won, and then he didn't win, and then he got knocked out by Kaikara France. It was an excellent back and forth fight. It was incredible. And I believe it all happened within one round. Regardless, looking at their records, I think that Bontorin has the power in his hands to put Matt Schnell out. And I don't know if that's like a very bold prediction to make for this fight, but that's the way I'm leaning. I think Bontorin, and I think Bontorin by finish, and more specifically by knockout, looking at their records and looking at what I've seen.
So I actually disagree with you on this one. I think Schnell is just the bigger dude. He's got 5.5 inches of reach. He's got 3 inches of height. But also he's by no means a perfect fighter, but his career has been pretty consistent at flyweight, the Pantoja fight aside. Like, he is a very ardent grappler. He's very willing to throw up submissions. I mean, he submitted fucking Luis Smolka, for God's sake. Like, I know Smolka has like not had the best run of late, but like that he had a great grappling fight with Tim Elliott. I think knockouts are rare at flyweight. You get some people like Kai Kara France or Davison Figueiredo who can throw with insane power. Bontorin hits hard. I don't think he hits hard enough to be the type of person who can make a difference at flyweight like that. So I'm going to take Schnell. Damn it, I was going to say something stupid like Schnell you later, but whatever.
Well, you just did. Anyway, the algorithm has an interesting call here because it has Matt Schnell as the favorite at 50.4% odds of winning. And then you've got Bontorin at 49.6%. So that is essentially one of the closest calls we've ever seen. I don't think it is the very closest, but then you factor in the money line, right, what we're working with here, and it actually throws the money on Rogerio Bontorin, 0.69% of your funds. That's not even the smallest bet, despite this being such a tight margin here. We've got the mid-size bet of the night, 0.69% of your fund, or if you're throwing everything in one night, you're going to put 11.36% of your throw on Rogerio Bontorin. I mean, when the algorithm has it that close, it kind of is a coin flip. And if the money line has Schnell as the favorite, it would make sense to throw on Bontorin because it thinks it is so close. Moving on to the next one, and I have been waiting to talk about this since it's been announced.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Fuck yeah, featherweight. Shane Burgos, the number 9th ranked versus number 13 ranked Edson Barboza. So first things first, I'm surprised that Barboza is ranked lower than Burgos. I get it that he, dropped down more recently and he doesn't have all that many fights in the division or whatever. This fight's going to be so good. This fight's going to be, if you've got a friend that doesn't really watch MMA, but will tune in every once in a while, and they want to watch this weekend, get them to watch this fucking fight. Because these two are going to stand and they are going to trade and it is going to be lovely. It's just going to be great. But that being said, I do think it is going to pretty quickly lean in Barboza's favor. I feel like Burgos has done pretty well, and his last loss to Josh Emmett isn't really that bad, especially by decision. Emmett's got serious knockout power, and he hurt Burgos, but Burgos survived, right? Made it all the way to the decision there.
I actually think it was a terrible loss.
Well, so
Josh Emmett's ACL got completely torn in the first round, and he went on to drop Burgos multiple times.
I don't
like losing to. There's nothing wrong with losing to Emmett, but the way in which he lost that fight was a fucking bad loss. You don't have a dude who has no ACL immediately and then let him work his way back in.
I mean, you could literally make that argument to say that John Jones sucks looking at the Giagos Santos fight.
Yes, so I would make that argument.
I mean, trust me, I hate him. I hate him. I would love to say that he sucks, but I don't know that that's true. Regardless, Emmett has ridiculous amounts of power in his hands. I don't think that this fight is going to be similar to that fight in the way that it plays out, but I do think that Barboza is going to put in work on the outside with those kicks, and I feel like he's going to chop up Burgos's legs and kick to the body, and that is going to be Burgos's undoing. As much as I want to see Burgos win this one, I just don't see it.
So there's a couple things about this fight which I just find fucking crazy. Like, Edson Barboza was for a while one of the absolute fastest fighters at lightweight, and then he drops down and he's like still the fastest fighter, more or less. Like, what the fuck? That's crazy. Also, I don't think it's that surprising that Burgos, you said Burgos is ranked higher, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they've both Edson's only win at featherweight is Makwan Amirkhani, and Burgos did it first, and did it by knockout as opposed to a decision. I personally scored the Ige fight for Barboza, but the rankings are dumb and don't take shit like that into account.
How could that's too subjective,
Yeah. So I think one of the other really interesting factors going into this fight is that Edson was at lightweight was always kind of defined by the fact that he kicks insanely hard, but his punches are not like he has good boxing, but his punches are not the thing that makes the difference.
Mm-hmm.
His punches have a lot more sting on them at featherweight from what I've seen. Like he's hitting both insanely fast and a little bit harder, I've noticed. So I think the big question for me in this fight is, does Burgos continue to pressure like a madman like he normally does? Because
Mm.
we've seen that Edson Barboza is absolutely entirely allergic to pressure. There's that great moment in the Kevin Lee fight where Lee moves in towards him. Barboza breaks his stance and starts circling around the cage, does a full lap before coming back into his stance. Like he's just never learned how to deal with that. And his solution was just to drop down to a weight class where the fighters are smaller. Uh, except that Shane Burgos is not a small featherweight. He's fucking massive. He's one of the biggest dudes out there. He's 5'11 with a 75.5-inch reach.
Jesus.
It's insane. He's so big and he's got amazing boxing. So this is a really tough fight for me to call. I think this is honestly the hardest fight on the card for me to call. And I say that knowing that soon we're going to be talking about Beneil Dariush versus Tony Ferguson. Like, things going in Shane Burgos' favor. He's got good pressure. He's got his boxing is so aesthetically pleasing to watch, but his defense is bad. Edson Barboza is very uncomfortable with being pressured, but he's hitting a little bit harder at featherweight. So I don't feel great saying which one of those things is going to be more dominant, but I'm going to pick Burgos because I trust the pressure and the good chin more than I trust Edson Barboza's just god awful like cage control.
As soon as you mentioned the Barboza versus Lee fight, I flashed back. We were there live for that one together. That was,
Yeah,
um,
man.
Kevin Lee was putting in the work, and then that spinning heel kick where he did the chicken dance and
Dude, you're
everything.
not even mentioning the best part of it, which is that people were leaving during the fight because they thought that they already knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. Oh
Like,
my God.
oh,
What? That
that was so good.
that was a great card to be at live.
Yeah.
Regardless,
I really hope that Lee makes a return to form. Mine is the god awful tattoo, but like
I don't know why I've always been put off by him. I don't know what it is. I'm
you
just
should
not a
listen to
fan.
his episode on the Joe Rogan podcast. Like he comes across really well when he's not talking shit. He's like a very, very well spoken, intelligent guy.
I feel like that's just putting two people I don't want to listen to together in a room and listening to them. But
Okay,
regardless,
in fairness, I listened to it and Joe did it before COVID happened and Joe revealed himself to be a fucking moron. But like, give it a lesson. It's not that bad.
all right, all right. So this one, where is it? Out of order. Okay. So Burgos is the favorite per the algorithm, 52.85% chance of winning. So once again, pretty tight margins here. But with that being said, Edson Barboza gets the actual throw, 0.14% of our fund. That is the smallest bet of the night, tied for it. And if you translate that to a one night throw, all of the money that you're throwing on Saturday, you will be throwing a, let's see, 2.27% of your throw on Edson Barboza here. So value play, but it's both a small bet and a very tight margin according to the algorithm. So make of that what you will. Moving on to a not quite as interesting bout, if you ask me.
It's
Woman,
the bathroom break on the main card.
yeah, woman's flyweight again. Caitlin Chookagian, somehow still the number 2 contender versus Vivian Araujo. And I really don't know what to say besides Araujo lands her punches when she punches. And I like that. So I'm going to go with Araujo.
Hey, throw some respect on the leaf blower kickboxing.
I mean, to be
Um,
to be fair, she is the number 2 contender.
yeah,
Like
but it's
she's not
um,
out there like sparking people, and it is a relatively not relatively, it is a very shallow division, right? But I mean, she wins most of her fights,
yeah.
so
Uh, I similarly don't have a ton to say. Dylan, do you know do you know what the difference in height is between these two?
Chukagian is tall, so a lot.
5 inches. Chookagian is 5'9". Araujo is 5'4". Do you know what the difference in reach is?
I'm gonna assume more absurd than that.
0.
Oh,
They have
seriously? Oh
3 inch
God,
reach each,
that's absurd. Okay,
according to Tapology at least.
no, it's
Um,
on UFC's website as well. Looking at it,
yeah. I'm actually gonna take Chookagian though. Like, I mean, okay, other than a loss to Andrade and Shevchenko, the champion and the person who just fought for the belt,
Hmm.
her most recent loss going back is to Jessica I. I don't remember that fight. But like a split decision loss to Jessica I versus a very recent unanimous decision loss for Araujo. And then you have to go back all the way to 2016 to find a fight that Chookagian couldn't win a decision in. Um, I'm gonna take Chookagian. Like, I don't think it's gonna be the most interesting fight, but like, she's consistent. She's consistently better than that.
Hey, remember how I said that earlier fight was not the slimmest margin that the algorithm has ever thrown out? Ladies and gentlemen, the slimmest margin the algorithm has ever thrown out, Viviana Araujo, is a 50.02% favorite.
Shit.
That is ridiculous. And with that in mind, they're going to throw 0.28% of your fund on Araujo, and then that translates to 4.55% of your throw for the night if you're throwing everything all at once. So essentially, here the algorithm is going, oh, I don't know who wins, and then the betting line has Chookagian favored, so we're just going the opposite direction. Um, this would be another fight where I would like to have Johnny on to give me a little bit more insight into what's going on there because that margin is ridiculous. I'm actually gonna try to message him after we're done recording and see if I can get something up on the Instagram just to put like some more context on that because that margin is so ridiculously low that I have no idea like what to do with it. But it's certainly compelling and I think for me now I'm more interested to see the fight just because now I want to know what's going on there. The algorithm sees it as dead even because that's weird.
I don't know. A close fight is not necessarily a good fight.
No, I'm not saying
My
suddenly I think this
reaction
is
to
going to be a
that.
banger, just that suddenly I'm very interested to see who edges the other out because as far as the algorithm goes, they're the same fighter. You know what I mean? They have the same chance of winning.
Yeah,
Regardless, now we go from the weakest fight on the main card to what might be the most exciting, to be honest, at least in name value for me. Lightweight bout between number 5 ranked Tony Ferguson versus number 9 ranked Beneil Dariush. And Connor, maybe cover your ears, maybe grab a tissue to dab under your eyes, because I'm picking Beneil Dariush, and I'm pretty damn confident in it too. And the thing is, Tony Ferguson from 2019, I'm picking him. Tony Ferguson from pre-COVID 2020, I'm picking him. The Tony Ferguson that walked into the fight with Justin Gaethje, I would pick him. But Justin Gaethje fucking took Tony Ferguson's soul in that fight. That sort of damage, even though he didn't go down, it adds up. And Tony Ferguson, you know, I wouldn't call him old, but he is fucking worn. This game rips you up, and it basically these. It's kind of like a cliche, but these fighters put their bodies on the line every time they step in the octagon. That's real. And Justin Gaethje fucking took Ferguson's soul. And I think the best example, like the best proof of that, was then Ferguson going on to fight Oliveira and getting dominated in a completely different way. Right? It's not like, oh, we figured out that he struggles with fighters that just have ridiculous power and pressure. Oliveira fought a very different type of fight, and he brought a type of fight that going into it, I thought Ferguson can win this. This is Ferguson's wheelhouse. Ferguson's got great grappling, and Tony Ferguson is no longer a top 5 or even a top 10 contender, if you ask me. And I would love to be proven wrong, but I think this is it. Like, I don't think he wins
are.
again until he fights someone outside of the top 10, top 15. And I know that sounds brutal, but like, genuinely being the first card without an audience, right? You heard every single strike land, and my dad and I, we love Justin Gaethje. He's probably our favorite fighter, both of us. And you just heard over and over again the thuds. You heard the corners talking, and when Ferguson ate that jab and he just starts shaking his head like, I don't know what's going on, like, gotta shake out the cobwebs. And it was kind of disturbing to watch. But I enjoyed the fight because I'm a sick fuck. Beneil Dariush, I've talked all about T-Ferg, but Beneil Dariush is a solid fighter who's on a very good streak, and he has not faced anyone at the level of Tony Ferguson, except that he has faced people on the level of current Tony Ferguson, in my opinion, because I think he's done. All right, Connor, now yell at me.
So Dylan, one of the last things you said is that Beneil Dariush is on a really good streak. How good is the streak? Because before this weekend, I would have been like, yeah, like a win over Carlos Diego Ferreira, like amazing. And not to take away from Gillespie, but like Gillespie made it pretty clear that CDF is like not really a contender that much, like low top 15 at best. And then the wins outside of that are Frank Camacho, who I love, but it's Frank Camacho, Jacare Close, and Scott Holtzman.
Okay, before the Ferguson fight, who did Oliveira beat?
Before the Ferguson fight, he had wins over Kevin Lee, Jared Gordon, Nick Lenz, David Tamer, Jim Miller, Kristen Giagos, and Clay Guida. And I personally rank Kevin Lee and David Tamer both extremely high.
See, I was gonna say Kevin Lee was the only name that jumped out to me on that list. I don't have like Tamer.
Nah, Tamer's legit as fuck. He hasn't fought in a while, but his kickboxing is outstanding.
Fair enough. Regardless.
So yeah. So the thing for me going into this is that one, I'm not actually I love Longback Benny. Beneil Dariush is one of my favorite fighters. He's an absolute class act. I'm not convinced his streak is actually that strong, and I'm not. I absolutely think that Tony has declined pretty fucking significantly. But at the same time, someone who's equally lengthy, who can strike and very comfortably wrestle without fear of grappling, was always going to be a problem for him. We've seen that before in his past losses. And someone who hits hard as fuck, who isn't afraid of striking with him, like Gaethje. Like, I'm not convinced that any version of Tony would have necessarily won those fights or had a more competitive version of it with Oliveira and Gaethje. So I don't think that they're great fights to gauge how much he's dropped off. So the question then, as I say all the fucking time, is how badly would Tony have had to decline before I would feel comfortable picking Beneil Dariush? And I don't think he's there yet. Like, Beneil Dariush is someone who is willing to wrestle and someone who's willing to grapple and someone who hits hard. But he's going to be going up against the jab of Tony Ferguson, which is always going to be keeping him at bay in a way that it couldn't keep Oliveira or Gaethje away. And when he's not the same quality of wrestler or grappler as Charles Oliveira or as some of the other people who have given Tony problems in the past. So unless Tony has literally completely fallen off of a fucking cliff, which I'm not convinced that he has, like, I'm not, I don't have
coaches and everything.
I'm not optimistic about Tony's future. My gut tells me that Tony has fallen off significantly, but I would need to see that he just doesn't have it anymore before I could say that Beneil Dariush is the type of fighter who can beat him.
Fair enough. And I wouldn't mind being proven wrong. You know, I will if I'm proven wrong, I'll be happy to smile on the next podcast and say I was wrong about it. But the algorithm,
Dariush is not going to be diving in for aggressive, like that fucking armbar that Oliveira caught. Dariush wouldn't have been the type of guy to get that. The takedowns, the slams that Oliveira was getting, that's not the type of thing that Dariush goes for. And the consistent leg kicking with like really good boxing that Justin Gaethje was doing, that's not what Dariush does either. So it would not be a question of a bad stylistic matchup. It would be a question of how far he's fallen. And I need to see it first.
That's fair enough. The algorithm is on your side of the issue here. Very tight margins again, not quite as tight as the last few we talked about. 51.58% chance of winning for Tony Ferguson. So still pretty close. And with that, 0.69% of your betting fund, or 11.36% of one night's throw will go on T-Ferg. I I feel like I'll be if I'm wrong, I'll figure it out pretty early into the fight. But and speaking of that idea, the lightweight titles on the line, vacated by Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, number 3, Charles Oliveira, faces number 4, Michael Chandler, for the belt. So, a few things going in. One, this fight is only set up for the title because Dustin Poirier wants to fight Conor McGregor instead. I do think that Dustin Poirier should be in the lightweight title fight, but if he wants to go make a fuck ton of money, good on him. And he's got a charity that gets funded by all this too. And,
Yep.
he auctions off his fight gear for it, and a fight versus Conor McGregor, you sign that shit, you get that going for your charity. It's all lovely stuff. And I love his hot sauce. But that being said, if he's not going to be in this fight, they gave us a fucking banger. Um, I would have been happy to see Gaethje in here, but I'm also happy to see him go and get another win before a title shot. Either is fine by me. This one, oh man, I really do feel like early in the fight, again, I'm going to know if I was right, because uh, if Chandler can put on the pressure and land big shots, right, pretty early, that's going to become clear. If he can implement his wrestling game, that's going to become clear pretty early. And if he can stop Oliveira's grappling game, that's going to be clear pretty early. If, on the other hand, Oliveira can stay on the outside, manage his distance, land some strikes, and then sneak in and engage in the grappling, I think the same thing happens in the opposite direction, where we're going to see the momentum of this fight start early and just go in that direction, much like way, way back, long before this podcast, Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor. I remember thinking, I don't really know what happens here, but I know I'm going to know early. Because I was thinking, oh, if Conor can't land that big punch, Khabib's going to implement his game. And it ended up going to Khabib's side, obviously. I think not that this is so, not that it's the same sort of thing, but I feel like we're going to know which fighters implementing their game plan early. Um, and personally, I don't know if it's my heart or my head, but I'm leaning towards Chucky Olives here. I feel like, not that Chandler, like we just saw Chandler come in, his only UFC fight. He rushed in, landed one big punch, and Dan Hooker was dead. If Chandler can do that, well, shit. But like, if you watch Bellator, that's not how Michael Chandler tends to win. He tends to win by being a grindy wrestler. And I feel like if you're going to put that game on Charles Oliveira, he will catch you from the bottom. So I think it's going to be Charles Oliveira, and I'm hoping that it is a failed double leg takedown caught into a guillotine. And yeah, nothing against Michael Chandler. I just like Charles Oliveira quite a bit.
Chucky fucking Olives, man.
Yeah.
Love that dude. Holy shit. I mean, God, he would be at featherweight and he would miss weight all the time. And every single time they would force him up to lightweight, he would be like, I'm gonna go back down to 145 because like that's where I'm gonna be a champion. Like that's where the difference is gonna be made. And then he finally decides to stick around at 155. And he just like, I honestly like he just fucking has started coming into his prime super hard. Like he used to be known as a fighter who would just give up when things got difficult, like Max Holloway or the fight with Anthony Pettis, where he kept not being able to get the submission from back until he gave up a guillotine, or the Paul Felder fight, or the where's the fucking Cub Swanson fight. Like that used to be something that he would do, and at some point, something just he just figured it out. Like the last time that we saw him not deal with adversity was the Paul Felder fight when he nearly got that anaconda choke and then just got elbowed out from the bottom. Uh, and like I kind of thought that was going to start happening in the Tamer fight where he was kind of struggling a little bit early. He got fouled pretty fucking horrible fouls from David Tamer. Um, and I thought that was going to be the beginning of the end, but like he has shown over the last 3 years in which he's racked up a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fight win streak, that like he's very much gotten pat or has he's shown that like he can deal with adversity and still come back and look good. So unless that's just entirely been a facade, but by the fact the only real adversities he's had was the fouling and a little bit of the struggle with David Tamer, I really have trouble thinking of a way that Michael Chandler can win this fight. Like
I
in
mean, you don't see
striking,
one punch knockout power in there.
I mean, he hits fucking hard, but we've seen Charles Oliveira eat some fucking bombs, first of all. Second of all, I think their styles play out a little bit differently because Dan Hooker likes to play on the outside and is extremely uncomfortable being pressured. Michael Chandler did a great job in that fight of throwing right straights to the body and setting it up by then never doing anything up until the one time where he throws the right straight to the body and follows up with the left hook. He did a great job of training Hooker for that. But I don't think that'll work against Oliveira because Oliveira likes to pressure himself. And B, if you try and tangle up with him, he's so happy to just snap you down and shoot in for like a Dars or an Anaconda or a guillotine. Maybe his cardio is just not there for 5 rounds, but like he's going to be comfortable striking. He's definitely going to be comfortable grappling. And I mean, even some of Michael Chandler's more recent grappling heavy performances, like after he lost to Brent Primus, the Goiti Yamauchi fight, he mostly just laid on top of him. There was not a lot of activity there. Oliveira would create that kind of activity. The Brent Primus fight, he just kind of laid there on top in those grappling portions. He didn't do a lot to threaten or deal damage. And I mean, okay, the first Bendo fight, he suplexed the shit out of Bendo, but like Bendo's one of those weird fighters where nothing makes sense. I'm going to take Oliveira. I trust him in more areas. The only real question mark for me is like maybe his cardio or his will to win fades if things aren't going his way. But he's shown that he's both extremely confident in his abilities and is willing to struggle through things to make it work.
So, my personal theory about him formerly being a fighter that would quit under pressure and then evolving, number one, he was cutting way, way, way too much weight. I don't know if he had the cardio. So, it, I'm not, fully convinced that he was quitting because he was getting hurt. I think he might have been quitting because he had no gas left in the tank. Um, and then the other thing
Yeah.
is,
Well,
he
even
debuted
then,
in the UFC at
quit super
20.
early.
What were you saying?
He would sometimes quit super early.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, the other thing is how young he was,
Yeah.
right? He debuted in the UFC at 20. Um, Now he's, older. He's obviously put some ridiculous skills together. He's got the most submission wins in UFC history. I mean, the dude is just coming into his prime. And, this is the first time I think since Anderson Silva we've seen a fighter challenge for a UFC title in his second fight. Like, that's
No,
ridiculous. Like, I get why. Who else did it?
Brock Lesnar.
Was that his set? No, because he had the
Was it
loss
his
first.
third? It was Heath Herring, Frank Mir, and then Randy Couture.
I think it was Frank Mir, then Heath Herring, then Randy. I
I'm
think
looking.
because I know he had his first UFC fight was a loss.
One sec. Um.
Fact checker Connor.
Yeah, no, it was his third UFC fight.
All right, well then, fair enough. I'm right. Eat shit. But yeah, I mean, I get why. Knocked out Dan Hooker real quick. The rest of the top five at lightweight is tied up either in big money or I don't know what's going on with Gaethje, but he is coming off a loss, even if it is to Khabib. Um, so I like this fight, but we have to keep in mind that the algorithm only has UFC data. It doesn't have Bellator data in here, so it is going to be skewed. That being said, it still has Charles Oliveira as a 63% favorite, which is very surprising. That being said, though, it's only throwing 0.69%, which is the mid tier bet of the night, or the high mid tier, I guess, bet of the night. I would figure that with such, like the other fights that had a 60 somewhat percent chance of winning, it went with the biggest throw of the night. Maybe there's something with the betting lines here that I'm not seeing, but regardless, 0.69% of your fund. So that's 11.36% of your throw on the night on Chucky Olives. I'm really interested. I'm not sure which way this goes, but I'm very interested to find out.
It's a good card. It's a really good
Yeah,
card.
it's a fun fucking card.
Also, you're
Yeah,
forgetting about my boy Joe Soto, who got a title shot in his UFC debut.
not counting that, obvious reasons. Yeah.
What about
And
Nico
still,
Montano, whose UFC debut was also a title win?
neither of those would be getting a UFC title shot in their second fight.
Eh, eh,
But yes, Ronda Rousey also debuted in the UFC as champion. So did Jose Aldo.
yeah.
Joe Soto was a last minute
Dominic Cruz.
replacement. Dominic Cruz did it as well. Yeah. Not a valid comparison. That's a bad faith argument. All right.
What are you talking about?
That'll
Big dose.
and that should wrap us up for this week. And it's just about my bedtime. So peace.
Old motherfucker.